I know this looks like a huge mess right now, but I got the wire run over from this fuse box that's hidden behind there. Runs under the core support. Comes out here. So these are all the wires for the panless fuse box. These are the wires that have to be hooked up to it. Got 3 wires that have to run into the interior there. One is the serial data for the OBD2 port. The other one is the brake switch to unlock the torque converter, as I said earlier. And the third one is for the check engine light. Got some extra wires here that I'm gonna just tuck into the harness, just to keep it a standalone. If this harness is ever used in something else or they switch gauges, then they'll have these options here. So these are the grounds and the power for the PCM. They're gonna get wired to constant, obviously. And then these are the remaining wires for the car. So these 3 wires were for oil pressure sensor, coolant temp, that kind of thing. There is a main wire that I cut off that used to go to the starter to feed the fuse box in the interior. So that's going to go to a fuse and then go to the battery. This one is a key-on source, which was for the old distributor. That one I'm going to use to trigger everything here for the fuse box, stuff like that. Just a key-on source for the electric fans as well. And then this one is the starter signal wire. So that already has a neutral safety switch on the column, as I said earlier. So that one's going to get wired directly to the starter solenoid, which I already have over here. So I'm going to get to work on this and clean it up a little bit. But it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. So I have the PCM mounted and all the wires hooked up from the fuse box, all the pink ones. So over here, fuse box, I have all the circuits being used. Like I said earlier, it's a 7-circuit fuse box. So the first one is just the main power for the relay on the fuse block itself. And then we have the PCM. We have driver side bank, which is injectors and coils, the passenger side bank, and then on the bottom we have O2 sensor heater, transmission wires, all the sensors, and the last is the fuel pump. I already ran a fuel pump relay over here. It's probably going to get like Walbro 255 in the tank. Getting a 96 Impala SS fuel tank. Hopefully that works out. Tried to tuck the PCM in there the best I could, routed the wires up against that. So I'm probably gonna make a little shield or something that goes under the fender here, just if you watch this car to kind of guide the water off. This is sealed anyway, but wouldn't hurt to be safe on it. Just got a couple extra wires here. These are gonna be for the fans. I got a 10 gauge wire here for the relays or the controller, whatever we use. And then this is the lead from the PCM to turn the fans on. I ran the interior wires inside the fender, all clean. Goes into the firewall there through an existing grommet. The 3 wires there are for the check engine light, the serial data for the OBD2 port, and the brake switch for the torque converter disengage. So they'll have to be wired up in the car. So I guess the next step is to start doing that, because it's also getting a Dakota Digital dash in it. So I'll keep you updated when I start that process. So we're in the car now. I've got my 3 wires run from the engine bay for the PCM. Like I said, it's my brake switch, my check engine light, and my serial data. That will be wired into, sorry for the mess of wires here, but this OBD2 port. I put it under the dash somewhere. I already started pulling the dash apart. Got the top dash pad off. Starting to pull the gauges out. They look like they all come out individually. Because it is getting a Dakota Digital dash system, I used one of these in my Fox body. They work really well, pretty clean. They just use a little, sorry, trying to get this to focus, a little phone jack on the back. You just route that down to this module here. This module is what everything wires to, all your sensors and everything. This is going to have an additional module that wires into the OBD2 port, because a lot of this, like the speed sensor and everything, is in the PCM, so it's just easier to do it that way. And the older car, you know, the newer transmission obviously doesn't have a provision for a gear drive speedo cable. Doesn't have a tach, anything like that. So it's just going to be a lot easier to integrate it into the dash with that module. So as I get to wiring it, I'll just keep you updated there, but I still have some gauges to pull out of it. And there's something floating around the heater box too, so I'm going to try and see if I can get to that. So I'm going to continue pulling this apart, and stick with me. So I got the cluster installed here. You can see the control box just peeking up through the top there. If you notice, I don't have a lot of the sensors hooked up because I do have the CAN bus module hooked up. The car is not running at this point, so I can't test it really, but I did program it. So when it runs, it should work the tach, the speedo, and all the rest of the gauges besides the volt gauge. So I can just turn it on right here so you kind of get an idea. Check engine light's on right now, obviously, because it's not running. Looks real good. Allows you to do a lot of things. You can, sorry, the air compressor kicking on for the air suspension, but allows you to do a lot of things. It's got 0 to 60 times and stuff like that you can get into. You can program the lights in it, so you can set your dim level and just a bunch of little functions in it, make it kind of cool. So you can see it's real clean. They do a pretty good job of making it classy and making it match the rest of the car. There's a lot of options. So I'm going to continue to put the dash back together, but it looks like it's all going to work out. So I started installing the fuel system. This is the tank out of a 1996-ish Impala SS. It has the rear exit, or the rear fill port. So that I'm going to rig up so it works with the stock filler behind the license plate. These straps, the stock straps, I believe are going to work, but because this tank is plastic, I just took some hose and I wrapped the strap with it to protect it from chafing. Did the same thing here, so that's where it rests on the body. So that's a piece of rubber hose that I siliconed up there, just threw some rivets in it to hold it for now. And they actually sit in there really snug, so they're not even going to rub on the fuel tank or anything like that. Now I've heard of some people that had to cut the trunk floor out, or they actually spaced the tank more. I ended up just pushing the floor up a little bit here. It was just touching it, so I gained like 1/4 of an inch, and it looks like it's going to clear just fine. And I really pressed the tank up against it with my transmission jack here to make sure, and it looks like it's going to have plenty of clearance. So right now I'm just going to do the other side. I'm siliconing these. Rivets just hold it for now. I'm going to do the other side, wrap the other straps, put it up there. I kind of bent the stock straps to fit because somebody had already replaced the straps, and it looks like they're going to work out just fine. Straighten them out and then just bending them to the right contour of this tank. This tank looks a little smaller front to back, but width-wise, it's a little bit wider, it looks like. So I'm gonna have to modify the exhaust a little bit, but I'm gonna continue with it, and I'll update you in a second. Update you guys, but I got the tank in here. Got the filler neck. Filler neck is stock off of the 96 Impala SS. I didn't even have to really cut anything down on it. The straps worked. I recontoured them, as I said, to the tank. Tank's a little shorter than the old one, but I ended up just bending up real nice to it. I did have to shorten the straps a couple inches. As you can see there, they go up, they mount to the stock brackets. You can see the fuel pump sticking out right there. Evap line, return line, and the feed line. Right here. So that way there I didn't really have to touch anything. I just isolated it because it was made for a metal tank, so I did add some rubber isolators so it wouldn't wear through the tank on the top and the bottom. Fuel pump lines come out there. Obviously I still have to finish wiring it. And then it's going to come right up behind the license plate. This is still loose. The Impala SS, because obviously it has that rubber flex joint, has a couple mounts on it right there. So I'm just going to have to make some mounts, probably to this trunk fan here, just so it doesn't wiggle around when you're trying to put fuel in it or something like that. This fuel cap is actually broken, I just noticed, so I'm going to have to get a fuel cap for it. But that's basically it. Now it's got an EFI fuel tank in the car. So we're getting there, little by little. As you can see, I got the feed and the return line routed up. They go about where they used to run stock, cross over under the frame here, kick out behind the frame. That one follows the air ride lines. This is going to be my fuel filter location. I'm going to put the bracket there. The fuel filter will go right here, tucked up in the frame. And they come around. They go up beside the chassis here, all tucked up out of the way. Plenty of ground clearance. Over here. And don't mind this mess. I'm going to route that up into the engine bay. It sits above the shift linkage and everything. There's going to be plenty of clearance for the exhaust. It's not going to be near it. So go up top. I'm going to route them up there so I can kind of route it clean alongside the bell housing here and right up to the fuel rail. Just as a little update, so when I had to fix that trans cross member, because the one they sent me was a piece of crap basically, I ended up pretty much designing the trans cross member so I would be able to slide it forward more, which then allowed me to slide the engine farther forward. So I actually believe that I'm going to be able to get the stock drive shaft to work. This is a 4L80, as I've said probably multiple times in the car now. I don't think you really have that problem with a 60, or at least won't be as hard because that transmission is shorter. Because this one's so long, I was kind of right on the raggedy edge there. So I found the seller on eBay. His name is Tadcom, Taddcom, and he actually specializes in drivetrain parts. So I don't know if this cross references to anything else, but he ended up hooking me up with this yoke. So this is the 32 spline yoke for the 4L80. It's got a real low profile here in between the U-joint where the shaft starts. So that is actually makes it shorter in that aspect. 4L80, you have, at least I have about 6.5 inches of spline engagement. So even though this is a bit longer on the barrel, it should still work no problem there. So this is going to be adapted to this drive shaft with this U-joint. And the part number for this is 2-3011, sorry, you can't see it. So I'm hoping once I put these in, and with the combination of this and me being able to slide the engine just a little bit farther forward, then I think I should be able to use this. The only real thing with this car that's kind of tricky is it has air suspension in it. So when the car is laid out on the air ride, I can't have it stuck in the drive shaft into the tail housing. So I'm going to get this thing together and we'll let you know how it goes. You can see under here, here's the stock drive shaft with the new yoke. See part of the cross member I made there. It is welded all the way. I just did it inside the little trans mount. So that's about how much we have at full droop. When you put this on the ground, the control arms straighten out more, so actually you have more distance here. When it's sitting on the ground, still have to play with the pinion angle. The rear pinion angle isn't ideal. It actually faces up quite a bit. It does have adjustable upper control arms, which will allow me to adjust the pinion angle. The only thing is the wheels are so big on this car. I believe if I adjust that any further, it's going to bring the tire even closer to the quarter there. And the last thing I want to do is have the tire hit, so that's something I'm going to have to look at before I touch it. But other than that, looks like that yoke's going to work out just fine with that U-joint. And the other thing I just did is, this is the stock shifter linkage. Because I was able to move the transmission farther forward, that ended up lining up pretty good stock. This is closer, so the spring here was a little bit too long, so I did have to cut probably a ½ inch out of the spring. You can see how far it's extended in there now. You can kind of see the marker where it used to sit. But this does shift through all the gears just fine. That's the stock yoke off of the old transmission that was in here. Bolted up the 4L80 just fine. So it looks like it's going to work out. I'm just going to hook up the column shift, make sure it goes through all the gears, and that's about it.